Hello, I'm Teena Smith with Ugotbranded, and we have the pleasure of having President Board of County Commissioner Reuben Collins here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Ugotbranded. Our topic today is celebrating success. And Mr. Reuben, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, starting off with, how did you grow up?
Well, my childhood was very interesting in a lot of ways. I was actually born in the District of Columbia, and our family is part of, what I kind of call a great migration, if you will, where you had African American families moving out of the district and moving into the suburbs. And most of the families and friends of my parents moved to Prince George's County, but my father was a public school teacher in Charles County, and so we ended up moving to Charles County. So in terms of my background, my father was an educator, so just public schools and public education was really the foundation of what we did. My mother was a seamstress. She passed away a few years ago, and but she also served in Charles County Public Schools as well. So public education has always been, something that has been, a foundational element of, my existence.
All right. And you are an attorney. Can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
I'm proud to say I've been licensed to practice law for almost 22 years now. I'm licensed to practice in the District of Columbia, the state of Maryland, and in New Jersey. And being an attorney is something that I'm most proud of because it was a struggle and it was a fight for me to accomplish this goal, because I'm the first to acknowledge that I wasn't, the greatest student in school. I was.
Tell us more about that struggle.
I was all right, but but I never really pushed myself.
Okay.
And it's funny because I had this conversation with my son recently. I was telling him, that I was really proud of the fact that he really pushed himself and he wanted, to be at the top of his class. That's something I never really wanted. And and just a very quick story, just dealing with education. When I first got in high school, I went to Lackey High School here. The classes that I was in, and at that time, African American students were pretty much like boxed in, and there was really no efforts at that time to give them opportunities to be in advanced placement classes or anything like that. Yeah. So, as I told you, my father was an educator, and during that time in his career, he was a driver's ed teacher, and so they rotated throughout the county through the different high schools. And he just so happened to be at Lackey High School when I was in the 9th grade. And I never forget, I was in class, sitting in the back with my buddies, laughing and carrying on, and I saw him walk past, and I just never forget because he did that double take. and I'm going to tell you now, that very next day, he took me to the principal's office, and he changed my entire...
and this is your father?
This is my father. Wow. He changed every single class that I took. And I'm telling you, I was pissed at my father for, virtually the entire time I was in high school. But that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because he put me in basically like advanced placement classes at that time. I was literally in one of only maybe 2 or 3 African American students in every class that I was taking.
And I consider you a role model. So what advice would you have for the younger generation?
To never limit yourself, and never let, even if you think it's a setback, not let that in any way limit your ability to want to move forward. Because, and whenever I've spoken to young people, that's something I've really stressed, that one thing that I've learned, during the course of life is, I mean, there's always going to be struggle, and there's never in any person's life, an individual that has not dealt with some type of adversity or struggle.
So how do you handle your struggle?
I mean, first off, I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I mean, that's primary for me. I mean, I just put it on that level, and at the end of the day, I recognize that you have to persevere sometimes, and that when you look at all elements of your life,
So faith.
that plays out,
Yes. And having the faith.
right?
To be an entrepreneur, to be in a status of where you are, it takes faith first, is what you're saying. But what would you say when you're at your lowest and struggling? What would you say your motivation would be to keep going? What's your advice to someone that wants to get to the level in which your success is?
Again, I mean, I think experience, and maturity kind of gives you more of an understanding of how life really is, and and you can compare your life with others, and there's a consistency when you see that all of us, generally speaking, deal with struggle and adversity, and so for me, it's just when I'm at that lowest level, that's when I really dig deep, and I'd say, look, I mean, it's going to change. It's going to change, and another thing I've noticed that I do is I really try to do things to be helpful to others. At that most difficult period. And it might not be like I really have that much to give. I just recognize that eventually, no matter what struggle you're in, you're going to advance. And just getting back to just my children. I mean, it's a conversation with my son, and my daughter. My daughter's she's 13. I mean, I could just see the stuff she's going through. Just being that age, and so I try to make a point to just keep encouraging. Because she's a bright, intelligent young lady, but you just want to make sure that's reinforced.
And what made you choose law? What made you become an attorney?
I think more than anything, reading about Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston. A lot of people don't know who Charles Hamilton Houston is, but he was the dean of Howard's Law School, and he was the one that coined the phrase that lawyers are social engineers, and he was a mentor for Thurgood Marshall, and he was born Charles Hamilton Houston was born in the district, and as you know, Thurgood was born in Baltimore, but reading about both of their lives and the influence they've had on this society, because I've stated on many occasions that as an individual, Thurgood Marshall has probably had more influence and been the most consequential figure in the entire history of the United States. And I don't think anybody can compare. When you think of his impact on the law and you using the law as a vehicle, to effectuate change. I mean, and so that's, and that's where my mind was. And so when I went to law school, I said I was going to be a civil rights lawyer. But when I started practicing, I realized that it's hard to make a living being a civil rights lawyer.
Right.
So, so I started really, kind of focusing on a more general practice, so I do, criminal law, mostly civil, but I do some criminal law. And so I have a general practice.
General practice. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I appreciate you meeting with us. It was definitely a motivation and honor to have you with us today interviewing. I don't know if there's anything you can add to our audience on what makes your success, but we do look at you as a role model. You have heavy shoulders, to carry with Charles County here and fill those shoes, which I think you do an awesome job. Why don't you share with us before we do leave on your goals with the county and what you want to accomplish?
Well, I think the reason why, I consider you a friend,
Yes.
and because I appreciate the focus that you've maintained on business development,
Yes.
and providing opportunities, for people of color, to understand, the importance of economics and the impact that economics has on, the lives of all of us. So the focus of this administration is to the best of our ability, advance the overall economy here in Charles County, to provide opportunities for business development.
Can you tell a little bit more, because I know you do go over this in our networking meetings, but can you tell our audience on Facebook that don't get to come out to the network meetings on the actual goal of what's going on with the economic?
Right at the top, we're advancing our MBE program. We have in the budget that we anticipate we'll be approving on May the 14th money that includes the resources to move forward with an actual disparity study. What that does is it gives our MBE program teeth, to show that an actual study was done to look at disparities as it relates to, procurement and the procurement process and opportunities for minorities in Charles County. So it will give it teeth, and it'll take it beyond just being a goal, because we have a goal of about 25% of, county procurement that would be provided to minorities, and which includes women, veterans, of course, African Americans. So, but we want to give that more teeth. In addition, we've explored, and we had a successful initial meeting looking at international trade opportunities. The initial meeting focused on trade opportunities with the continent of Africa. The result of that, well, I think too often people look at international trade as something only the big guys can participate in.
Yeah.
But no matter what your particular business is, there are potential opportunities to do business abroad, and by making your focus not limited to just local business development, but looking at things from the perspective of global opportunities, you're also creating an additional layer of resources for yourself. So if there's a slowdown in the economy in America, the business development, business arrangements you may have created in a country abroad will secure, your continued revenue, because you're creating a new revenue source. So,
Right.
But
We're always looking for that.
as time proceeds, and we'll definitely keep you posted on, the developments with this. I know we have a meeting coming up pretty soon where we will be meeting with representatives from the country of Mozambique, and looking at something similar to maybe a sister relationship with that country, or maybe a township, in Mozambique,
Now,
so.
who actually came up with this idea?
Well, that was part of our goals,
Okay.
and that's something I definitely pushed, going into this term. But our economic development department facilitated this. We have excellent people that are fully knowledgeable of, international trade and international opportunities. So, look out for that, because that's going to be a big deal.
We will, definitely. I don't know what else to say, but it's so much to look forward to. Again, this is Reuben Collins, the President, Board of Commissioner of Charles County, and we thank you for following us on Facebook. Again, follow us on IG, like us on Facebook with Ugotbranded. Thank you. That's it. I was kind of caught off guard here because normally he does this, so, and I'm not feeling well.
You did a good job.
You're actually still live.
Oh.